Hello everyone. Today we will look into some of the most common MVC questions asked in an interview for a .NET developer. Let's see. Let's see the first question. What is MVC? MVC stands for Model, View and Controller. MVC is an architecture pattern, separates an application into three components, Model, View and Controller. Then what does Model, View, Controller represents? Controller is a class which is derived from the base class controller. Controller and its action method handles incoming browser request and retrieve necessary data from the model and returns requested response to the browser. So the controller handles incoming requested URL. Then model represents a collection of classes where you can work with data and business logic. It's used to interact with the database. Controller retrieves data from the model and displayed in the view. Then view represents user interface which receives data from the controller and displayed in the view. So when a user requests a URL in the browser, it goes to the server and routed to the controller. That controller execute related view and model for that request and create a response for that and send it back to the browser. Next, what is View Engine in MVC? View Engine is responsible for rendering the view into HTML form to the browser. That is, he created a view page using racer syntax. When I run this application, the View Engine converts this racer syntax as plain HTML form and displayed in the browser. By default, ASP.NET MVC supports web form view engine and racer view engine. We can also use other view engines like Spark and HAML, etc. Next, what is Racer View Engine in MVC? Racer View Engine is a markup syntax which helps us to write HTML and server-side code such as C# or VB.NET. It's a server-side markup language. It's not a programming language. When we write a Racer syntax in MVC view, it should be always enclosed in at curly braces and each line should end with a semicolon. File extension should be .cshtml or bbhtml. Next, what is routing in MVC? ASP.NET routing model is responsible for mapping incoming browser request to a particular controller action method. All the configured route of the application stored in route table and will be used by route engine. When a user requests a URL in the browser, the route engine find a match in the route table. If it's fine, then it will forward the request to the appropriate controller and action method. If there is no match in the route table, it returns 404 error to the user. We can register a route in routeconfig.cs file. When we create a new ASP.NET MVC application, the default route added to this file using map route extension method. This routeconfig.cs file register in global.asx.cs file. Like this default route configuration, we can configure many route of the application in routeconfig.cs file. Next, what's the types of routing in MVC? There are two types of routing in MVC, convention-based routing, attribute-based routing. Convention-based routing is a default routing in MVC. In this type of routing, we configure the routes in routeconfig.cs file like I said before, like this. This way of routing is called as convention-based routing. Next, in attribute-based routing, we specify the route attribute in action method of the controller like this. Let's see a small example. Created a MVC sample application and inside the controller added a student controller and inside that added index action method and above this action method added a route attribute and provide the route name as test and above the controller added a route prefix attribute and provide the route prefix name as student. You can give any name which you want. Here provide the controller name and inside the home controller calling this action method name by index. Here using anchor tag, let's execute. Let's click. See, the route is not found because here we change the action method name as test using route attribute so that the index action method is not found there. Let's change that as test. See, it's working now. By using route attribute, we can change the action method name. Next, what are the return types of controller action method? Action methods are responsible for executing the request and generating the response. Generally, we return view result for returning the view page in a controller action method. Like this, we can also return JSON result, JavaScript result, redirection to route result, partial view result, file content result, and empty result. Next question, what are the filters in MVC? By using filters, we can execute any logic either before an action method is called or after an action method executes. We can apply filters to action method level or controller level or global level. And there are 5 types of filter: authentication filter, authorization filter, action filters, result filters, exception filter. Let's see a small example of each filter for easily remember. First, Let's understand what is authentication and authorization before seeing this filter. In authentication, we check whether the user is valid or not. For example, if I log in any site, I should register in that site. If I try to log in without registration, I am an invalid user. I don't have any authentication to access that site. In authorization, we check whether the user having rights to access the resources or not. For example, if I am non-admin, I don't have permission to access admin portal. If I try to log in admin portal, it says you don't have a permission, that is authorization to access the admin portal. Let's move to Visual Studio to see an example. By using authorize attribute, we can achieve authentication and authorization filter. Here created a login action method, and above this action method, using authorize attribute, authenticate the user 1 and user 2. If any user try to log in except user 1 and user 2, it will show the message you are not authenticated to log in the portal. And here created admin dashboard action method. Above this action method, using authorize attribute to authorize this view by using user role. Here assigned roles equal to admin, that is the user who having the administrator role can access this view. If any non-admin user try to log in, it will show the message you are not authorized to view the portal. Next, action filters. Action filters are attributes that can be applied either on action method or on controller. Action filter are executed before or after an action is executed. We can achieve action filters by creating a custom action filter. Let's see a small example to remember easily. In this MVC application, created a log filter class inside app start folder. Let's open this. To make this class as action filter attribute, we have to inherit action filter attribute abstract class. Let's go to this definition. This class having on action executing on action executed method. We can override this method in our class to perform some logic before and after an action method of the controller executes. Let's override this. Let's override it on action executed on action executing method. This method will call after an action method execute. This method will call before the action method executes. In both methods, calling the log function. Inside this log function, just printing the name of the controller and action method using debug.writeLine. This message will print in output window. Now we can add this class name as attribute to our controller or action method. Let's add to home controller. Let's go to home controller. Above the controller, let's add. Now this action filter will applicable to all the action method of this home controller. Before and after execution of this action method, our custom action filter method will call. Let's see. See our index action method of the home controller executed initially. Let's see the output window. See, before and after execution of the index action method, our custom action filter executed successfully. Next, result filters. Result filters are executed before or after generating the result of an action method. This filter can achieved by creating a custom filter, same as like action filter. Let's see a quick implementation. For action filter, we override on action executed on action executing method. For result filter, we need to override on result executed on result executing method. Next, exception filters. If there is an unhandled exception thrown during the execution of the action method, we can handle it by exception filter. If the interviewer asks how to handle exception in MVC, we can tell we can implement custom exception filter or built-in exception filter to handle the exception in MVC. Let's see a quick example to remember easily. Let's throw an error inside index action method. Let's add handle error attribute above the controller. This handle error attribute will redirect to error.cs HTML page if any error occurred in this controller. The error.cs HTML page I added inside shared folder, just showing a default message. Now let's execute and check. See, it's redirected to error.cs HTML page. Here we used built-in exception filter to handle the error. We can also create a custom exception filter to handle the error. Next, what are the built-in action filters in MVC? In previous question, we saw custom action filters. There are built-in action filters also available. Output catch, handle error, authorize, require HTTPS. These are all attributes. We can apply these attributes above action method level or controller level. We already saw handle error, authorize attributes. Let's see output catch attribute only. This action filter catches the output of a controller action for a specified amount of time. Let's see a quick example. Let's add output catch attribute above this index action method. Here what will happen means the content returned by this index action method will store in cache memory for 15 seconds. Here I specified the duration as 15 seconds. So it will keep the content 15 seconds in cache memory. Even if I refresh the page, the content will load from cache memory only. After 15 seconds, the content will load from action method and stores again in cache memory and repeat it. Let's check. The time is 2:58:33. Let's refresh the page. Again, the time is 2:58:33 only. For 15 seconds, it will load from cache memory only. After 15 seconds only, our time changed. Next question. What are the action selectors in MVC? Action selector is an attribute that can be applied to the action methods. It helps the route engine to select the correct action method to handle a particular request. Action selector attributes are action name, non-action, action verbs. Example for action name attribute is you can specify action name attribute above the action method, and inside the parenthesis you can change the action method name. So when you access this action method in browser, you have to specify student list instead of index. Next, the non-action attribute is used to prevent a method from getting invoked as an action. When you add a non-action attribute above the action method name, you cannot access that action method in browser. Next, what are the action verbs in MVC? Action verb selector is used to handle different types of HTTP requests. Action verbs are mostly used in web APIs. Action verbs are get, post, put, delete, and patch. You can use this action verb attribute above the action method. HTTP get attribute used to retrieve information from the server, post to create a new resources, put to update an existing resources, delete to delete an existing resources, patch used to update any partial resources. Next, what is partial view in MVC? Partial view is a reusable view which can be embedded inside another view. We can use same partial view at multiple places and eliminates code redundant. We can render partial view by using html.partial method or html.renderPartial method. Next, what's the difference between partial and render partial method? Partial method returns HTML string as an output. Render partial method returns void, that is, it will not return anything. The return type is void. HTML.partial method injects the HTML string of the partial view into the parent view, but render partial method writes HTML in the response string directly. Let's see a small example. Inside this home view, created a sample partial view. Inside that, just create a div with a sample message. Inside the parent view, rendering that partial view using partial method. When rendering the partial view using partial method, we can assign the returned HTML string into the variable. This variable we can use anywhere in this view, but render partial method, we have to place where we want to render. It won't return anything because its return type is void. Next, what is ViewStart in MVC? ViewStart.cs HTML page is a special view page containing the statement declaration to include the layout page. Let's see a small example. In this MVC application, created ViewStart.cs HTML page inside view folder. Let's open this page. Inside this page, just assign the layout is equal to location of the layout page. When we assign a layout inside ViewStart.cs HTML, this layout will applicable to all the view pages of this application. So instead of declaring the layout page in each page of the application, we can include it in one place so the application become maintainable. And also this viewstart.cs HTML page is hierarchical. That is, you can create this viewstart.cs HTML page by folder level. Also, you can override the layout page by page level. Next, what's the difference between view and partial view? View contains the layout page. Partial view does not contain the layout page. Before view is render, viewstart.cs HTML page is render. Partial view does not verify viewstart.cs HTML page. View may contain the markup tags like body, HTML, head, etc. Partial view is designed especially to render within the view. View is not lightweight, but partial view is lightweight when compared to view. Next, what is Viewbag, ViewData, TempData? Why this? What's the difference between these? All these are controller base class properties. All are used to transfer value from controller to view, but in Viewbag and ViewData, when you transfer value from controller to view, it will available only for current request only. That is, if you move to another controller or action method, then the value becomes null. But in TempData, we can transfer value from controller to view or between controllers or between action methods. And also it helps to maintain the data when we move from one controller to another controller or one action method to another action method. When we pass value using ViewData and TempData, we need to typecast in view page, but ViewBag is a dynamic type, so no need to typecast in view page. In runtime, internally typecasting will occur so that ViewBag is lower than ViewData. Let's see a small example to remember easily. Inside index action method, created ViewBag, ViewData, and TempData. For ViewData and TempData, we need to specify the key name inside the square bracket. For ViewBag, we have to specify after dot operator and assigned integer value to all. And inside view, when accessing ViewData and TempData, we have to convert explicitly the type and assign into the variable. But ViewBag, no need to convert the type, directly we can assign. Next, what is bundling and minification in MVC? Bundling and minification are used to improve request load time. Bundling allows us to load the bunch of static files, that is JavaScript files, CSS files, jQuery files from the server to client in a single HTTP request. We configure bundling of static files inside bundleconfig.cs file. When application requested in browser, all configured static files transferred into client side in single request. This will avoid loading of each static file whenever need. Next, minification technique optimizes script or CSS file size by removing unnecessary white space commands. Inside the script folder, you can see jQuery file and jQuery minification file. Let's open this. In jQuery file, you can see commands and variable declaration in separate line and space between them. But in minification file, you cannot see the space or comments. Everything in one line. This will help to reduce load time and bandwidth usage. Next, what is HTML helpers in MVC? HTML helper is a class used to create HTML controls programmatically. It provides built-in methods to generate controls on the view page. For example, instead of creating a text box control like input type is equal to text box value is equal to John, we can use text box form method from HTML helper class to create a text box. When using HTML helper class method to create a control, we can bind model object to that and assign the value of that control to model properties when submitting a form. Next question, what is areas in MVC? When we design a large application in MVC, it includes many controllers, views, model classes, so it can be difficult to maintain it. Areas allows us to partition the large application into smaller units where each unit contains separate MVC folder structure. For example, large enterprise application may have different modules like admin, staff, students and so on. By using area, we can separate each module. Next question, what is MVC scaffolding? Scaffolding is a technique used as code generation for ASP.NET applications. For example, when you create a view, you can use scaffolding technique to generate a code for CRUD operations using entity framework models. All the best. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.